We have 45 minutes, I just learned. I thought it's 30 minutes, so we have plenty of time for a Q&A, I guess. And today I want to talk about the omnichannel way, or the highway, as you will see at the very end. It's the highway to oblivion, or the highway to hell, or the highway, as you will see visually, to Death Valley. Because I will argue, and that's the first part of my talk today, that we are talking about the next iteration of retail transformation. Some call it Retail 4.0. It's the era of omnichannel. And I'm going to argue that consumers these days expect seamless, in-time retailing across whatever channel it is that you're offering, be it online, be it offline, be it a marketplace, etc., etc. And if you don't, you will not be prepared. So we go a bit into the history of this new era. We go a bit into some of the details and implications. And then the second part of what I'm going to talk about is I'm going to talk about recent trends in innovation. I think I picked 4 for today, and I will share 2 best practices, one from the US and surprisingly, one from Germany, because Germany typically is a bit, anyone from Germany, so I need to be a bit careful here. Okay, so I can continue. Germany typically is a bit behind when it comes to retail technology. Typically, we talked about it, UK is leading in Europe at least. My name is Jürgen Brock, typically referred to as JB. Not sure whether you introduced me at all. I'm sorry, so I might be repeating things. I'm the CEO of FulfillmentTools. We are a spin-off of Rewe, which is one of the leading supermarket chains in Germany. And we've been around for about 10 years. The spin-off happened 3 years ago. And we provide an omnichannel fulfillment system. So we take care from pre-checkout options, you will see that later on, all the way to in-store operations, order and inventory orchestration, as well as returns anywhere. So that's us. And if you need to look at that, because I forgot, if you want to visit us, we are at B37. That's the first message. And the second message is, if you're interested in one dimension of what I'm going to talk about today, which has to do with speed, there's going to be a separate session. I think it's over there tomorrow at 10 a.m. about the competitive advantage of speed. Without further ado, let me start. If that works, here we go. So, omnichannel way or the highway, innovations, trends, and best practices in omnichannel fulfillment management. So that's one element of omnichannel. Of course, there are other elements, specifically in the marketing arena, and that is what I want to talk about first. Don't worry, it's not going to be a history lesson, but this provides you hopefully a bit of the context. We are, since about 2011, when the term omnichannel retailing was coined for the first time, in the era of omnichannel. Some call it the era of the consumer, where the next generation of customers, the next generation of consumers expect seamless, in-time purchasing experience, regardless of whether it's online, regardless of whether it's offline. It needs to be what we typically refer to as one voice. If you communicate A, you should communicate the same A using another channel. If it's online or offline, it doesn't matter. The promotion should be the same, the look and feel should be the same, your brand experience should be the same, and that is a challenge we just talked about. And interestingly, what you actually mentioned, because you're currently an online pure player, looking into brick and mortar, or brick and click, if you like, the challenges are there, and they're huge. The big players in the previous era of mass consumption was Walmart. They are offline, increasingly going online. Their initial attempt failed. Now they're doing quite well. Why, we talk about in a second. And the other big player of the current previous era that we call here the era of the consumer is Amazon. They're the online players, and they are now going offline. Why they do that, we talk about it in a second. If you're interested in the latest trends, I was just joking a bit about retail in Germany, but if you're interested in the retail trends, cutting edge these days, used to go to the US, go to China. It's amazing what is available there, specifically with their big apps like WeChat. It's all one super app where you can do omnichannel retailing seamlessly, from quick commerce, 15-minute delivery in the big city centers like Beijing, for example. So this is really, really great. And the importance here really is one voice communication. I will focus, given what we do at FulfillmentTools, I will focus on fulfillment, but this is one element of what you do when you retail, when you're in retailing or when you're a brand, and that is actually the first question I have. How many retailers are in the audience? How many brands, so D2C, direct to consumer brands, do we have? That's about 100%, so spot on to the Deliver Events team. Thank you very much. So, first of all, let's talk about the specifics of omnichannel retailing. Customers expect seamless in-time shopping experiences, and that is not easy. But why do we do this? Why are we talking about omnichannel? And this quote I like very much. It is all about what works best in the seamless combination of digital and physical. That's why, for example, Walmart is going digital. That's why Amazon is going physical. There are certain things you can do in the physical world, and there are certain things you can't do in the physical world, etc. And the other way around. And this is one interesting insight, because Amazon is still the second largest after Walmart in terms of revenue, but they are struggling. They have perfected, although you might not like the user interface, but in terms of the actual process, one-click shopping, they perfected convenience. They perfected speed. With Amazon Prime, no pun intended, they are a prime driver of speeding things up, which is going to be the discussion tomorrow at 10 a.m. Same-day delivery, next-day delivery, they have significantly impacted retailing in terms of speed. But they are struggling with the physical world. Why is that? We talked about it briefly. The physical world is very different to the online world. Price tags, you have to think about price tags, adding price tags as one example. And the other way around. Why is it that Walmart was struggling? They have perfected mass consumption, they have perfected the physical side of retailing because they lack the digital skills. You see this all over the place. Why is it that Tesla is currently excelling and most of the German or European, or actually all the other car manufacturers, be it in Europe, be it in Asia, be it in North America, they are struggling? Why? They have perfected the manufacturing of cars. They have perfected creating engines, internal combustion engines, which are no longer relevant. A Tesla, for example, is essentially software on four wheels. Car manufacturers typically have no competence in software. Same here. Amazon is perfect in the digital space, but they have limited, let's say, limited capabilities in the physical world, and the other way around. So that's the context. If you want to be in retailing, and we probably have a discussion in a few minutes, initially you might be a pure online player, initially you might be a pure offline player, but ultimately you need to combine both to provide the seamless experience to consumers. And with this I want to share, I think it is a total of 5 trends and innovation in recent time, to give you a bit of an idea what you can do, what others are doing, and hopefully this triggers interest. And hopefully we can engage after the session. As I mentioned, booth B37 is where you can find us. So the first trend, and I saw some name tags and brand labels, so it's going to be an interesting first discussion. I want to make it a bit interactive, so be aware, I might ask questions. So the first big change since about 2000 is a move away from on-premise IT. When we talk about omnichannel retailing, when we talk about the digital side of omnichannel retailing, we talk about software as a service since about 20 years ago. Driven by Salesforce, they were the first to drive software as a service. We now see a move to best of breed. This is what we are trying to indicate here, that most of the retailers we talk to currently fall into 3 categories. They are subscribing to a one-stack monolithic architecture. So typically in Europe, that means they are a Microsoft house or an SAP house. In North America, often they are an Oracle house. That's one extreme. And this has advantages and disadvantages, as you can see, as we are pointing them out. And on the other side, and we have representatives in the audience, I can see, who follow that path, specifically the big ones. In the US, a good example is Best Buy. And in Europe, a good example sits over there from IKEA. They do not everything, I would say, but a lot, from what I understand in our discussions with you guys, is they do it in-house. And they just announced, it was, I think, a couple of days ago, where you bought a software company. And Best Buy, as I said, and Target is another one in the US, which follows an in-house logic. Again, you have disadvantages and advantages, but what we see is a trend towards the middle, which is best of breed. So retailers and brands picking the best solution to the current problem at hand. The best PIM, the best ERP, the best e-commerce system, the best, in our case, fulfillment system, the best warehouse management system, for example. And they combine this and orchestrate it to provide the best of solutions. I'm not advocating that you should forget about the other two options. We provide best of breed solutions, and we see this more and more. And this is one of the trends that we see. Again, be aware of advantages and disadvantages. The advantage is best of breed provides you with best of innovation, speed, execution, typically best performance price ratio because there's a lot of competition. But of course, I never like arguments where you say everything I do is best. So there is a negative as well, because typically, as I mentioned, ERP, PIM, etc., you're talking about maybe 5 suppliers that you need to orchestrate. What happens is, with the big players, they have an in-house department, in-house IT that orchestrates. Smaller retailers typically then go and opt for system integrators or value-added resellers as best partners, if you like, in terms of integration. And not always, but sometimes what happens is you create an integration layer where you then talk to each of these systems. The beauty is, and I always use the analogy of music, you can buy one box, a boom box, as they say, for, I don't know, a few €100. But if you want the best sound, you disaggregate each of these elements into loudspeakers, preamps, amplifiers, etc., to have the best sound. That would be the equivalent. And I would be very curious, given that we have essentially 100% either retailers or DTC brands in the audience, how many of you currently follow the one stack approach? Wow. For your information, nobody raised their hand. That is surprising. Well, okay. How many of you, and IKEA, you have to say yes, how many of you go for in-house development? Okay. So all of you, so the vast majority is best of breed. That is surprising. Wow. A very modern, progressive audience, if you like, because typically 1/3, when I do this in other sessions, 1/3 is one stack. About 1/3 is in-house development, and the remaining share is best of breed. Okay, so as I said, that's what we see, best of breed. So we are in good company with about 80% of you following best of breed. So that's the first one. The second one, and this is an example, those of you, I don't know who's from the UK, I know you are, anybody else from the UK? I'm sure you know Superdrug. And this is just one example. The other day there were other examples. This is about the recent trend that we see for those retailers who are already online to opt for marketplace integration. Either integrating third-party marketplaces or creating your own marketplace, just like Amazon has done a while ago. And that would be my second question to you. Who of you is already integrating marketplaces into your own shop? Very innovative, very good. Who of you plans to integrate marketplaces? Okay, great. Okay, thank you very much. That's a huge potentially a huge impact for your business, because within split seconds, by integrating the marketplace, you double or sometimes orders of magnitude your assortment. And that's important, because I personally believe that we will see ecosystem competition. So you will have the marketplaces ecosystem A and the marketplace ecosystem B, and you as a brand specifically, or as you brand your services as a retailer, should take a slice of this by creating your own online presence and integrating third-party marketplaces, and at some point in time, even creating your own marketplace like Amazon has done, because you control the customer relationship. If I buy from you via Amazon, you always lose. So that's an important thing. And of course, given what we do, we would provide you with all the nitty-gritty services and interfaces required to integrate marketplaces. So for us, when the customer orders, in terms of taking care of your order, we don't care whether this is coming from your own store or from the marketplaces that you have integrated. That's the second one. The third one is store integrated fulfillment. So your store network, so I'm talking about the physical stores, not just selling, holding inventory and selling and maybe taking care of returns, but being a fulfillment center in its own right. Some call it a micro-fulfillment logic. And again, a question, my third one. Who of you at this point in time have already activated your stores in terms of in-store integrated fulfillment? Wow, very innovative audience. in most cases, nobody has done it. IKEA, I think if I'm not mistaken, several years ago, you did this on your own, integrated store fulfillment, so you were leading in Europe. And this is huge. Companies, I don't know about IKEA, would be an interesting question maybe from me to you in a few minutes. But companies such as Best Buy and Target now fulfill up to 100% of their online orders via their store network and not via the central warehouse, which those of you who come from the logistics side will say, well, that's nonsense because the central warehouse is always cheaper because it's highly automated. But if you take the whole costs into consideration, if you look at customer expectation, if you think about speeding things up, that will be a core topic tomorrow in my speed session, if you like, it makes sense to do it. Because you can outcompete Amazon. Because if whatever it is, inventory-wise, is available in a given, say you order in London, I'm in London, there's a store in London, I can just pick it up. And specifically in DIY, we see some examples. Typically, you can pick things up within 20 minutes. Or you can have it shipped same day even, so faster than Amazon if you have a strong network. And what we see here, I'm happy to share with you. I'm not sure, I think you can download these slides. The link is at the very bottom. That is a longitudinal study of several retailers and how they evolved from a traditional centralized fulfillment logic to a decentralized fulfillment logic. Next up is smart checkout options. That's something that we've seen about 1.5 years ago to slowly emerge. As I said, we essentially provide an order management system, although we call ourselves an order fulfillment system provider. And it used to be easy because we would act as soon as the order comes in. Order comes in, then something kicks in that we call a distributed order management system, where we, via certain rules, identify the best facility to fulfill the order for the customer to pick it up or to ship from store to the customer. What happens now is before the customer actually buys, so before an order is generated, to provide fulfillment options, such as, yes, from that store, click and collect is possible, such as inventory, knowing that at that store, say I still have 5 pairs of jeans given a certain color, given a certain size available, and providing these pieces of information based on unified inventory. So we take all the inventory in all these facilities, your marketplaces, your drop shippers, whatever it might be, consolidate and then provide the information to your commerce system that you're using. So the customer who increasingly wants to have options and wants to be informed, empowered, knows what to expect before buying. So it used to be, as I said, order comes in and then we take care of it. Now it is even before that in terms of smart checkout options. Next question to you. Those of you who have an online presence, who provides already pre-checkout options such as those? I'm really curious. Let's have a chat because you are like spot on. Very good, very impressive. So that's the last trend that I did bring, smart checkout options. And with this, I would like to talk about 2 retailing best practices, one from the US and one, given what I just mentioned about retailing in Germany, from Germany. And the first one is Ace Hardware. Anyone knows Ace Hardware? Ace Hardware, as you can see, is a hardware store. You buy these kind of things like barbecues and other things that you can get from a hardware store. If I'm not mistaken, they are headquartered near Chicago in the US, so they're US based, and they have 5,000 stores, so quite significant. So they have a good coverage of the US. And if you look at that website, anything that calls your attention, anything that you say, oh, that's interesting, I've never seen that before. Anything that comes to mind? Anything you say, wow, so cool? Say again? I hear, yeah, that's already, that's, yeah. That you don't always have store locations based on maybe IP or whatever it might be. Where's that? Yeah, that's already a good hint. Yes, correct. Besides those 2 things, sorry, there's one more. the red box. This one? What makes you say that? Ah, okay. It's a reflection of our times. Yeah, okay, got it. got it. Those two gentlemen that identified these things, this is a hint, because I would say overall there's nothing special. But you're right, this in-store and the store locator gives you a bit of a hint, because if you start shopping, when you start filling up your basket, you'll see things like that. I hope this is big enough. I hope you can see that. So for example, it says here, your order, which might consist of several order items, pick up at store is available. So this is already what I mentioned in terms of curbside pickup as a pre-checkout option, knowing these things beforehand. And in that case, what that means is they have a delivery promise. And if you play around with their website, you will see this at item level. Because there might be small things, there might be heavy things. So it's not a generic, it's available, but it's at item level. So they have real-time POS information for each of these 5,000 stores, which is quite impressive. And the other thing that you see here is that they have also activated, because this idea of omnichannel is trying to create an intelligent network of your nodes consisting of warehouses, your online store, your marketplaces, your physical stores, and knowing exactly what is where, and then playing around with these nodes. So what you see here, for example, is an indication of real-time inventory at store level plus ship to store. So in other words, you might order again from London. There might be a store that has whatever it is that you have ordered near London, rather than from the central warehouse, which might be miles away. I ship it from that store, which is not a warehouse, to the other store for speed purposes, transportation cost purposes, etc., etc. And that is a good example. And we have, specifically in DIY, we see this often. Who would say you have that kind of information already available at your store? You must raise your hand now again. Not yet, okay, good. We found some room for improvement. But that is, from a consumer perspective, that's brilliant. That's what we would like to have. And this is essentially a win-win for the consumer and for the retailer, because overall they will save costs by optimizing their network. Second example, I look at the time. Second example is a company that probably you have not heard before. I haven't. It's a small DIY retailer in Germany. And again, I suspect you don't speak German. Why should you? Waste of time. This is just a website. There's nothing special. It's just a website where it says, products, brands, services, etc., etc. It's their e-shop. That's their interface. What is interesting here is an element we haven't spoken about. It is an interactive delivery cost calculator. So what that means is I pick whatever I pick, and in real time, before I buy, this is again a pre-checkout options example, before I buy, I know how much I have to pay for shipment. And again, that works only at item level, because a small screw that you might buy versus a big, huge 2-meter ladder is, of course, different in terms of shipment costs, in terms of other aspects. And this is done interactively. As you add, the weight increases, the dimensionality increases, and the estimate increases. And that is also something that very few retailers do. In fashion, that's not so relevant, but in DIY, furniture, etc., this is relevant if you charge. Of course, there are some who just say we don't charge. It's all free, or it's a flat fee of $10 or whatever it might be. Any one of you providing interactive shipment cost estimations? Second opportunity with you. Great. And with this, I want to close, and we have 15 minutes of questions. That's great. We are living in the omni-channel era. Consumers expect seamless, in-time shopping experiences, regardless of location, regardless of place, regardless of time, regardless of what it is that they order. Retailers need to reflect that by being omni-channel, by integrating their on and offline business, by unifying their inventory, by providing pre-checkout options, by providing in-time retailing. That's the speed element that I'm going to talk about tomorrow specifically. And if you don't follow the omnichannel way, but the highway, in this case to Death Valley. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jürgen. Do we have any questions from the audience regarding subjects that Jürgen was talking about? Anyone?
I can't hear. So stupid.
So, with that, I might kickstart a couple of questions which you touched on. As a retailer, the main job of the business is to sell stock, not to run tech. You did say that you've got this golden middle there, best of breed solutions choice. How do retailers actually know what's good, right? We tend to be locked up in the legacy stack if you're older than 5 years, let's say, and you didn't take advantage of any new coming tech because you already had something there. And legacy stack obviously would not provide for new challenges. And now you go to the market, how do you know what is best of breed? And how do you know whether you actually grab it and wrestle with it using your own IT, or you go to like these monolith solutions like legacy market providers? Where to go from there?
Very good question for the next hour, I would guess, to answer that fully. I think if you, first of all, the question is it's not about technology. The technology is there and the technology works. Whether you work with the big players, IBM, Oracle and others, whether you work with a specialist like us, the technology works. The challenge are the people. People are the challenge. The people who have to work with whatever it is that you're setting up in the stores, that you set up in the back office, etc., etc. And the first question shouldn't be technology. The first question is, what do you want to do and why do you want to do this? Why do you want to provide a new omnichannel service? And then after that, the question is how to do it. And if you, and typically you have monolithic, if you're happy with your partner of choice, and you're happy to be dependent on one partner, which is always a challenge, but if you're happy, continue. If you're happy, if you have the competence to do it in-house, there are a lot of very, very good examples. Best Buy, as I mentioned, Target, IKEA. Continue to do this. If you're happy, if it's competitive, continue to do so. But if you think best of breed is for you, then a good starting point is actually the MAC Alliance, which is a group advocating open enterprise systems. The MAC Alliance provides you with a good overview of not just OMS vendors, but also ERP vendors, CMS vendors, or commerce system vendors. So that would be a good starting point. And then, of course, events like here, because a lot of those specialists in the space, in the area of OMS and WMS, are actually here, exhibiting, listen to what they have to say, go to the booth, talk to them, and then pick what works best for you.
That's MAC Alliance is obviously a very good hint. They call themselves composable, which is kind of like API-driven, headless, right? Again, not necessarily requires you to run your own IT department at seven figures plus very often in terms of cost. So that's great. With Omnichannel, as a retailer, my headache was always, where do I keep the stock? Do I commit the stock to the channel, or do I just go wild and open the stock to all the platforms? How do I actually have real-time visibility of orders and real-time visibility of point of sale on my brick and mortar? So I don't oversell, I don't overpromise, I don't upset.
Yes, a very good question. The vast majority do not have real-time visibilities at the item level in the stores. So POS systems are typically outdated, decades old. And it's, of course, if you have 5,000 stores and you want to replace your POS system, it's going to be very expensive. But if you do, and you make it, modern, then you have, and we have one customer, for example, who has now real-time visibility in 100% of their stores. And then you can take advantage of the things that we talked about, the advantages of omnichannel, the advantages of activating your store network plus warehouses. And it depends what you prioritize. Sometimes, specifically, if you go to third-party marketplaces, you subscribe to and you sign certain service level agreements, so you have to prioritize actually selling on their marketplace rather than your own store, for example. But ultimately, the point is, as you start activating your in-stores, as you start activating decentralized fulfillment, the system can learn and it becomes predictive, for example.
What system would that be?
That would be our system. So as we give you one example, one simple way of setting up our system is each of the facilities has a safety stock of say 20%. So 20% of whatever is available will not be available online, so that when people go to the store, they are not empty shelves. But does it make sense, 20% across? Probably not, because your stores differ. Some in the city center, some are more remote. So as we generate data, the system might then be in a position to say, for this facility, it should be 25%. For this facility, it should be 12%. So this is this whole idea about AI and machine learning. But to do that, you need a lot of data and time.
Yeah, so it's very clear why retailers would want to go omnichannel, or even, as you mentioned, implement marketplace idea to amplify the stock levels and to keep the customer on their own website, on their own product listing or product detail page for longer, because you are essentially harvesting the opportunity, but at the same time, what do you do with the split order? This is the kind of complexity of your flows. How do you serve the customers post-purchase? What do you do with tracking details for a marketplace order that you served and the customer thought that they bought it from you, while you also fulfilled part of this order out of your own warehouse, and yet those are two separate parcels, and maybe you don't even own the experience on the marketplace solution. So what would be the customer service solution for that?
I think first of all, it's very important because we're talking about something that works best the more complicated and complex your network is. So if you have just one store, it doesn't work. If you have, like the biggest of our customers is 7,000 stores, if you have 10,000s of SKUs, different SKUs by stores, that is this is sort of complexity that what we call a distributed order management system loves, and you need to set it up. And in terms of picking the right solution for you, I can say two things, because there are, 20 distributed order management systems on the market. First, have a look how easy it is. How easy it is to set it up. Do you need to code it, or can anyone in this audience, who I assume are not coders, do it? That's the first question. And then how flexible is it? Like you mentioned split orders, for example. In our case, you can just activate it. And then you can activate it and set certain rules by saying, as soon as the order exceeds the threshold value of, 1,000 euros or 50 euros, whatever it might be, we allow split orders, as an example. And we all can do this. It's just switching it on and putting a number. We don't need to code. So it's how flexible is the system to support all these complexities that you've just mentioned, and how easy it is to set it up. That would be the initial setup. And then two other things, given this complexity, start small. Start with maybe a few stores or one country, depending if you're multinational, and then grow and learn. Because what we've learned, even the same customer in this very, very similar, same industry. One of our first customers was a bakery. That was a bit surprising, but it was a bakery. The next bakery, you would think it's the same. No, it's not. Fashion, customer A, customer B, very different. So we can make recommendations given past experiences and past customer reference case, etc., but ultimately it's an emerging journey over time, and make sure you're flexible enough to adapt.
So start small, go slow to go fast, langsam, aber sicher.
Langsam, aber sicher, yes.
Yes. Again, I guess it's the communication. We are, of course, talking about going omnichannel, going marketplace model to maximize the revenue. And you mentioned there is a tendency on the retailer side to race to the bottom. I'm going to be the fastest, I'm going to be the cheapest. I think that it's still very important that we as retailers, we look after the business when it comes to margins and look after the customers, so never overpromise. During COVID, there was a tendency of 2-hour delivery, same day delivery, same evening delivery, next day delivery. But to be fair, fewer and fewer of us are at home. Some of us are mobile or school runs or, dog walks or in the office. So I guess as long as we offer options to customers and then stick to those promises, deliver on a contract, we should be fine. But again, it just sounds scary to unleash your storefront and allow all the other retailers, vendors to list on your page, because you kind of like you don't control the experience, and ultimately we as retailers, I guess, are all selfish and think our brand is the best, so you want to protect the brand experience, and yet you don't own the brand experience. So that's not only a delivery side, the last mile side of things, but it also is very much the quality of the product or even the quality of pictures on your site, right? So I guess those are also the things we should consider when allowing others to list on our site. Is it a uniform experience? Does it make sense? Or do I look like another, Wish.com 15 years ago, where no one was treating it seriously? But yeah, would anyone have any questions or comments? Because I think, no?
Go ahead. No? Okay.
No.
But let me just... yes.
I think we've got a question. Let me just pass you the mic.
About the Omnichannel inventory tool that you said that you are offering, is that a standalone solution? Is it part of a bigger product that you offer?
Good question, and thank you. We have a suite, so we can take care of the things that we've just seen, from pre-checkout all the way to returns. But if you're just interested in, say, the inventory part, or just interested in the in-store fulfillment which is the pick and packing, for example, or just interested in the distributed order management system, these are separate modules. So it's a modular composable. You mentioned the Gartner term. It's composable, so you can pick and choose. You don't need the whole thing. You can work with others, and we would integrate the other solutions.
Okay, thanks.
I think
maybe can I just say one thing, because you were
absolutely,
because you mentioned speed.
It's your show. Yeah.
You mentioned speed, and I'm going to talk about this tomorrow at 10 a.m. as I mentioned. But I want to say it's not about speed. It's not who's the fastest. The question is, and we use the term in-time retailing, because sometimes you don't want things within an hour or within 2 days. Sometimes you can wait. And the importance is to figure that out. And there's a great example in the DIY. If you want a barbecue set, you want it probably immediately if it's in summer. If you order it in winter, you probably don't want it. And if you want a cover, you maybe want this after you've used it for a season. And these kind of things, for example, companies like Best Buy are working on to use artificial intelligence to understand what is really needed. It's not always the fastest. Just want to add that.
Excellent. So that's post-purchase, kind of like clienteling, more kind of approach, bundling, but time delayed.
Correct, yeah.
For your merchandisers. Lovely. Well, thank you very much. I hope you found it useful. Please rate us 5 stars and add €1 tip at the end of the journey. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.